more that you can lean into your own personal discomfort, say what needs to be said in a non-offensive way, the more you make the world a better place.
All right. Good afternoon. Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram. Welcome to Jumpstart Mastery's Live at 5. I'm Andy Prisco from Jumpstart Mastery. On Tuesdays for Live at 5, we focus on topics that are informed by crisis de-escalation thought and ideology, but that are useful for everyday life and for everyday people. And I think that today's topic is a terrific one. Boundaries without blame or aggression. How do you set them? How does one articulate themselves in setting boundaries? Respecting boundaries. How do you engage boundaries without blame, shame, regret, or aggression? There's a couple of reasons why people, generally speaking, don't like setting them, and on many occasions become very animated when they're violated. Blocking a goal or violating an expectation puts us in touch with boundaries, with limits. Jiddu Krishnamurti said it this way: when I truly engage in the act of listening, when I am truly attentive to another human being and focused on being attentive and listening, there are no borders. As soon as I erect a border, there's conflict. And he's right. Boundaries, however, are very useful in maintaining one's own sense of serenity, peace, self, capacity, regulation. Imagine if there were none. I think many of us are not aware of how many boundaries that habit and tradition have put in place that we don't worry about. And that when they're transgressed, we suddenly feel something and have to do something about it, but we don't talk about it all the time. You know, it's a pretty common unspoken boundary that if someone were to come into my physical space, particularly a stranger, my nervous system does this for me. It's going to immediately remind me of boundaries associated to my own safety. It's going to set things into motion that activate my nervous system in a way that a boundary just got violated and I'm at risk. My nervous system will do that for me. What about other boundaries that are not always shared or assumed or taken for granted? Maybe it's assumed that the use of profanity is just something that everybody does, and someone might feel emotionally aroused by being around it and then feel a need in the context of a public conversation to set a boundary about it. Touch is a monster one. Someone is engaging in touch that is without consent and unwanted. People who are blind deal with that one every day. Every single day. Being touched without being asked. In fact, I'm going to take a moment to talk about that. Not long ago, I attended a National Federation of the Blind conference in Houston, Texas. A couple of 2-3 years ago. I was in Houston. 5,000, 6,000 people who are blind walking around. First thing that I learned before that conference, but really saw it play out there, is that most people who are blind, and I'm saying people who are blind or blind people, I'm using them reciprocally. Why? Blind people are completely comfortable with identity-centered language. They're okay being called blind people. They don't feel as though it's a violation of their person-centeredness, person living with blindness, to be called a blind person. But blind people engage the world with the same nervous system that you and I have, that's constantly being stimulated by tactile experience, physical touch, bumping into things, other things touching them, people touching them. One of the observations I made at that conference by being with so many blind people was the hypersensitivity that blind people showed one another to touch, and immediately began with, "I'm sorry." That was huge. It was like watching the startle flinch impulse all over the place. When I began working with Amy Wilson at Safety Positive, which is an organization that serves blind people, she brought into my awareness the extraordinary number of people who felt disempowered because someone with meaningful desire to help would make physical contact with them that's undesired. And the reaction that most people who are blind provide to that can be very abrupt. "Don't touch me, please." And then that would cause someone with meaningful intent to feel assailed as a result of their, however ill-informed, genuine desire to be helpful and engaging in touch without consent. One of the big topics that we worked on together was how to verbalize setting a boundary without having a blaming affect or using aggression. This is a great example, actually. So we worked out a number of VDSPs for people who are blind to manage people that were engaging in non-consensual touch or physical contact. And it would sound like this: "I feel you touching my arm. It's extremely arousing to blind people when they are touched without consent. Would you be willing to remove your hand from my shoulder and let me explain to you what I need help with? That way you can help me most effectively." If someone did that to me and I touched them without consent and they were blind, I'd be like, "Oh, I feel awful. Yeah, sure. Please tell me what I can do to help." And I would be corrected. A boundary would be set and it wouldn't be World War III. Why is it that we have such hard time setting boundaries with people? Some people are particularly good at it. By and large, most aren't. One of the things that makes the boundary setting and the boundary receiving difficult is when the language is personalized. When it's an appraisal of what you did. You crossed a boundary. You made a mistake. You engaged in something inappropriate, as opposed to hearing, "Hey, I observe you doing this thing. There's a reason that we prefer something else. How about you try it that way? And as a result, we'll be able to work together more effectively." When we can set the boundary without engaging in individual appraisal, we are able to make the world a better place. So what are some boundaries that are important to you personally? Boundaries that maybe you've wanted to create with someone, but you've been delayed in doing so because of the discomfort attached to the idea. "I got to go set a boundary with this person." So unpleasant. Requesting, which is a form of invitation, requesting someone to honor a personal boundary is also an entirely reasonable technique. "Hey, I observed you using a lot of profanity in that last sentence. My religious faith prevents me from engaging in the use of it and being around a lot of it. Would you be willing to just say whatever you have to say without profanity That way I could be with you more presently in what we're trying to do together. That's not an adjustment. That's not an appraisal of someone else's use of profanity. Now, the person who was using profanity might feel a little weird about that, but your language did not individually appraise them. It just observed that you were using it. I don't think there are many occasions where you can set or receive a boundary without feeling anything. You're going to feel something. What we're trying to prevent is the abrupt arousal of the nervous system through the setting or receiving of the boundary in an abrupt way. Instead, we want to do it, I think I said it not long ago. For some of these situations, it is better to slowly peel the Band-Aid off, not rip it off. Just rip it off, get it done. That sucks. It hurts. There are other times when peeling it back slowly is indicated. If it were a one-size-fits-all, that's what we would see with all bandage removal in medicine, but that's not. We remove bandages in many cases or dressings carefully. We assess along the way. We're very, specific in how we remove the dressing from a wound or from a broken limb. We just don't blow the bandage up. We just don't cut it off, rip it off. We don't do that in medicine. Why the hell would we do that when we know and have had experiences that most people with suddenness and speed experiencing a boundary are probably not going to like it, which is what drives why I don't like setting them. We're proposing you change the way you set them by not personalizing the boundary as a form of appraisal of another human being. How do you do that? Consider a VDSP or an OFNR. What's an OFNR? Observation, feeling, need, request. So let's say someone's using racial slurs and I want to set a boundary because I don't like them and they make me very uncomfortable. And I'm concerned that others who might see me engaging with you as you use racial slurs and me not say anything about it and just sit here being anxious, maybe I have fears about that. It's just easier for me to speak truth and say what needs to be said. Hey, look, I've observed that you're using some racial slurs. I feel terribly anxious when I'm around them. I need to feel secure and safe in this relationship with you in the moment where we're sharing an obligation to do a job. Would you be willing to just revise your language around me and not use racial slurs? If you were on the receiving end of that, what would you say? You might not like it completely, but what wasn't it? It wasn't an appraisal of you. You know, it's wrong that you're using racial slurs. Now, I'm not saying using racial slurs isn't wrong. I'm saying I'm not engaging in the appraisal of another human being, period, whatever it is. Why? Because people don't like unsolicited appraisals. People enjoy the invitation to self-correct. I certainly do. This is a monster-sized thing that can be practiced and improved upon. Boundaries in interpersonal relationships. Let's play with this one. Honey, I've noticed that your breath is bad. I need to enjoy. I feel anxious even bringing this up because so observation, I noticed your breath is really strong and it's got an odor that's pretty intense. I feel scared even bringing it up because I don't want you to feel appraised. All human beings can struggle with bad breath sometimes. And I really need to be able to be physically close to you because I want to enjoy this intimate experience we're about to have. Would you be willing to go brush your teeth and knock down some mouthwash? How hard is that? Now, the person on the receiving end might say, oh, my breath is bad, but their breath, and maybe a little embarrassed about that, but their breath was bad. And an intimate partner had wanted to set a boundary about fixing that before they became physical. Here's what it wasn't. You didn't brush your teeth again? Your oral hygiene sucks. Why wouldn't you want to use mouthwash before we were together? You see the difference? The magic to setting boundaries without aggression, without blame, without shame, is to avoid the use of appraisal of the other person's behavior in the description of the boundary. And instead, kick it upstairs to either a shared value or an agreement or a policy, rule, whatever. Or if you're going to make it personal, try an OFNR. Make the observation, say what you're feeling, name it, describe what you need, name it, and then make a request. Would you be willing to? I hope that you found this useful. Lots of people don't like setting boundaries. Lots of people don't like receiving boundaries. The manner in which both of those occur has a direct relationship to the outcome. If you follow an approach that avoids the use of aggression in setting the boundary, the reaction in receiving the boundary, the more that you can avoid the use of personal appraisals in your description of the boundary and why, the better off setting it and receiving it will be. I hope that you got a little something out of this. I look forward to seeing you on Thursday. Hey, also, lots of stuff happening this week on socials for me personally, Jumpstart Mastery and Hope Reform on LinkedIn and Facebook. Check it out. Lots of lives coming up. We have other really fun episodes coming up with Ernie Stevens, with Dr. Kasha from Italy and Sweden, to Dr. Martina Pesic, to Gary Nesner. Really looking forward to providing these sessions for you. Take good care.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
More that you can lean into your own personal discomfort, say what needs to be said in a non-offensive way, the more you make the world a better place.